Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, where we discuss governance, policy and a variety of topical issues to shape to give you an informed opinion about developments within and outside Nigeria. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed, standing in for your regular host, Hamza Idris. Tonight on the program, we discuss the concerning rise of the price of cement and many other building materials. According to reports, some states are seeing a 50-kilogram bag of cement rise to as high as 9,000 to 10,000 naira. This exacerbates the current cost of living crisis across Nigeria today. Activists and commentators alike are calling for price control or regulations. In January this year, a federal high court in Lagos has ordered the federal government of Nigeria to fix prices of goods and petroleum products following a suit filed by human rights activist Femi Falana. This week, the Minister of Works, Senator Dave Umahi, announced President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's directive for cement companies to revert to their previous prices. Now, the question is, how much is the price of bag of a cement today where you are in the country? On the program today, we'll give you an opportunity to join the conversation as we weigh some of these developing issues across the nation, especially looking at the persistent rise in the cost of living. Our guest tonight is Barrister Hussaini, a legal practitioner who will help us navigate some of the conundrum, legally speaking, about what consumer protection law is like in Nigeria and why things are pretty much hard to control at this point in time. Barrister, good evening and thank you so much for joining us in the program. It's good to see you again.
Thank you so much.
Right. Okay, before we get to the heart of the conversation, let's bring you some of the news roundup for today. Sheikh Aminu Ibrahim Daurawa has resigned as the Commander General of Kano's Hisbah Board, citing discouragement from the Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf. Governor Kabir has expressed concerns about the board's modus operandi, prompting Sheikh Daurawa's resignation via a Facebook live post. Also in the news, the federal government has imposed a $10 billion fine on Binance, a cryptocurrency trading platform, citing illicit activities contributing to the devaluation of Nigeria's naira, according to Bayo Onanuga, the special advisor on information and strategy to President Bola Tinubu. Also in the news, in Plateau State, inmates at the Jos Correctional Center staged a protest over plans to reduce their food ration, reacting to the news that their meals will now be downsized. Controller of the facility, Raphael Ibinuhi, confirmed the protest. Well, let's get some insight into this and many of the other developing issues on the program today. That will be coming up in just a moment after the break. Join us again. Welcome back to the program. Thank you very much for staying with us. We're just getting things started where we're largely going to discuss price control in Nigeria and whether it is, of course, protected by law and what the government can realistically achieve by trying to implement some of the provisions of the 1999 Constitution, especially as far as this act is concerned. Well, before we get to that, let's discuss some of the tidbits for you this evening with Barrister Hussaini, who is our guest on Daily Politics tonight. Barrister, let's start with this one from Jos, where we understand that inmates are not particularly happy that their meals, as meager as it is going to be further cut down because of the current food crisis we have in the country, and they are protesting. And you can imagine if that is happening in Jos, this is what's making the news, what is happening elsewhere in other prisons across the country, which is reflecting what is actually going on in the country today. What are your thoughts?
Well, basically, inmates in prison, so long as they are, even if they are convicted, or they actually standing trial. Once they are there, they still maintain that right they have to life, which will go down to what they are fed in the prisons or the correctional centers, and what actually the government is providing for them as to feeding and welfare. And of course, that will come down still to law. Sorry, I always try to connect this conversation with law.
Perspective.
So, they are citizens of Nigeria, most of them, let me say, and they basically have that right of welfare protection. And I think it is within their right to voice out their dissatisfaction in that. So,
and of course, it is very telling that whether Nigerians are in, say for instance, are incarcerated or outside, we're sharing the same, expressing the same emotions regarding the food crisis in the country, because outside of the prisons you have Nigerians protesting and pretty much saying how things are not palatable at the moment. Also in the news today, we understand that, as far as the Naira-dollar exchange rate is concerned, the federal government is going after Binance, one of the platforms that, according to the central bank governor, is responsible for illicit financial flows, billions and billions of dollars going undetected, and also helping push down the Naira as far as valuation is concerned. What do you make of the government's move to try to address some of these issues, especially with regards to the volatility of the Naira?
Well, basically, the government has the power to through the economic objectives of the government, to control the economy. That will come down to what value the Naira retains, and maybe what are the factors that pushes the Naira downward, and then what are the things that the government has to do as a regulator. So I believe, regardless of the fact that Binance may not be based in Nigeria, but so long as they committed virtually some infractions or actually try to undermine the laws of Nigeria, I think it's in a good position for government to actually come in and see that they bring them to book and control their activities.
We understand that Binance Nigeria's leadership or executive team under the watch of the government, and I think this couple of days ago, the federal government is trying to obtain a court order to restrain them in this country as the investigations into the operations continue. Finally, on our tidbit, going to Kano, where the morality police, popularly known as Hisba, is back in the news again. Sheikh Daura earlier this morning announced his resignation. Just, I think, hours before, the governor of Kano was very critical about the operations of Hisba in Kano, talking about some of the possible human rights violations, saying that the operations need to be streamlined so that it's within the framework of the law, for instance. Give me your understanding of this particular conundrum. Obviously, Sheikh Daura has a right to turn down or to step down from his role, but obviously it is one issue that is polarizing the various sections of the people, especially in Kano.
Well, firstly, Hisba as a board is a formation of law. It's backed by law, and of course, the head of Hisba or the board itself is an appointee, or they are appointees as a board of the governor. So the governor, of course, has the right to speak about their operations, see how maybe if they're operating in this way, and I feel like this is not the right way for them to operate, the governor has the right to maybe talk to around their own operations. However, also by the coming to the leg of resignation issue of the Sheikh Daura, of course, is within the powers of Sheikh Daura to say, okay, I feel like maybe I'm being undermined or I am not being appreciated. I can leave this job, and basically Daura can just say I'm going, and I see it's just he's all right as an appointee and as just like an employee of the government.
I mean, it's not unusual for people to turn down appointments like this or even step down from roles like this when they feel that there is no alignment between what they're doing and what their principal expects them to do. Yes. But let's get right into the heart of the big conversation today, which is price control. Just set a premise for our viewers to understand, especially that we have the Consumer Protection Act. We have the various provisions of law that are supposed to serve as guardrails when it comes to pricing, when it comes to delivering quality service and goods to Nigerians who are consumers of some of these products.
Well, interesting. You see, basically, we run a free market, laissez-faire. So basically, when you are in business in Nigeria, you are, I mean, actually the prices are supposed to be allowed ordinarily to be controlled by the market forces. So however, looking at the constitution itself, it gives out like a power or some kind of...
But Barrister, I'm going to have to hold you there for a moment. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment to further double down on the conversation around price control and what we need to understand and know regarding the laws and what is happening in Nigeria today regarding inflation and how things are pretty much out of control. Join us again after the break. Welcome back to the program. Thank you very much for staying with us. We're in conversation with Barrister Hussaini on the state of affairs, looking at price control. And of course, just moments ago, we're trying to understand the parameters, the provisions of the law regarding price control in Nigeria. Just before the break, Barrister, you're trying to make a point around what the law says and how it's supposed to function. So please go ahead.
I was trying to make this point that generally we run a free market in Nigeria, and the expectation is that the market forces should control the prices of goods. So the government is not expected to ordinarily come in fully. However, looking at the provisions of the main objectives of government is to maintain the security and welfare of the people. And under that is under the chapter 2 of the Constitution, it talks about some of the fundamental objectives and directive principles of government. So within that, there are some economic and social objectives which are provided in between control of the economy, control of business, and control of competition. So the government has that power. Generally, the provision of Chapter 2 of the Constitution is not justiciable. You can't go to court to force the government to enforce it. However, the order that you earlier mentioned that the High Court or Federal High Court made in Lagos is basically under the Price Control Act. And where provision of the Constitution by itself said, look, I'm not enforceable, you cannot take government to court for this. If the government now say, oh, we take it upon ourselves to pass a law to justify that particular section of the Constitution, which ordinarily should not have been justiciable. I'm saying now I've passed a law, which is the Price Control Act, to say we shall have the power to make up a price control board, which is supposed to control the prices of some essential commodities or commodities that the government will come to realize or come to determine later. So any commodity today, the government can come up and say, you should put in prices like this. And also under the competition law, the recent passed competition law of 2018-2019, it controls like prices, even though for that, under Section 88 is for the purpose of competition alone. Right. But under the Price Control Act, is basically for the purpose of welfare of the citizens. So the government can come in ordinarily. Also, the government has imposed it upon itself now. It was not made mandatory for the government by the Constitution, but now the government made it mandatory for itself to come in. So basically, the plaintiff in that case was famous Falana SAN. So he went to court to say, this government ordinarily, by this law, imposed it upon itself to say that we shall make a board, that is price control board. And now the court should force this government to control prices of certain goods. So looking at also maybe the conversation you said that in the news about the Minister of Works talking about how businesses, most especially the cement companies, should control their prices, state the prices of goods, or go back to the previous prices. Even under the Price Control Act, there are certain conditions that will be met. Like, for example, while controlling the price of goods, you have to take into account, if it is by the manufacturer, how much does the manufacturer spend in coming up with that good? And if it is by a supplier, how much he supplies.
So control itself has to be a function of empirical evidence. Yes. You cannot just fix price without factoring in, say, for instance, costs of production,
Yes.
right? And so on and so forth.
Yes.
So go ahead.
So basically, you cannot just say, okay, we wake up today, this is the price. No, even under the Price Control Act, you must say, okay, how much you produce cement? What is the cost of production? Now, this is the fair price that you should set it as a manufacturer or a direct producer. And if it goes to the market, the wholesaler or the retailer, this is the price that they should actually sell that good. And basically, Femi Falana SAN went to court to force the government to say, okay, set up this board, set up these parameters, control these prices of these essential commodities.
And we know on the economic side of it, it's a whole different conversation, because we talk about subsidies as one of those control measures that the government can use to keep the prices low, because that in itself is a measure of price control. Because if you subsidize, you're in effect directly or indirectly regulating the price, whether it's pump price of PMS, whether it's the price of cement or agricultural produce, for that matter. Tell us why that particular High Court order is unrealistic to expect the government to implement, because we haven't seen that 7-day period has already elapsed since that judgment was given.
Well, you see, even the court case, if you read, you realize that the parties to the case actually, there's the Price Control Board and the Attorney General of the Federation did not even appear in the court. And sometimes is should I use the word unfortunate, that judgments will be given, but then how do you enforce the judgments
especially when the government is involved.
When the government is involved, you come to the government and say, okay, this judgment is given. The government is supposed to set up the board. You and I or Mr. Falana SAN cannot go to and say, okay, we set up the board and these are the members of the board. It's still the power of the government, and if the government cannot do it, actually the only thing that can come up is maybe some public resentment and ridicule to the government, but nothing actually.
Right. Yeah, I think it's akin to dragging the horse to the river, but unable to force it to drink water at this point, because you can obtain those court orders. By the end of the day, getting the government to do that, especially if it doesn't have the impetus or the political will to do it, it's going to be another different case entirely. Also, especially regarding the developments around the cement. Let's talk about the words of the Minister of Works, Senator Dave Umahi, who re-echoed what the president wants. And this past week, we've also seen the federal government threaten to open up the borders just to help drive down the cost of the price of cement, for instance, telling the manufacturers that, listen, if you don't bring down the price of these goods, we're going to open the borders and you're not going to like the competition that will come as a result of that. Legally speaking, when you talk about provisions for competition and how there are laws that are supposed to protect that, give me a sense of the latitude the government has to act on directives like this, for instance, and also on the side of the manufacturers. What sort of protection exists for them to just ignore what the government is saying and go about their business as usual? Because as far as they're concerned, cement is still selling for as high as 2,500 naira, according to a Business Day survey that showed that Dangote cement, for instance, is selling at 12,000, I beg your pardon, 500 naira. While Lafarge is selling between 12,000 and 14,000 naira per bag. Though it is considered the cheapest in the market today, the Bua brand of products sells between 10,000 to 11,000 naira per bag. So the government is making its threats. However, the manufacturers are going ahead as far as their business is concerned. What cover do they have, legally speaking, to say the government cannot dictate what the price of cement is going to be?
So basically, you see, as we earlier said, we run a free market. The government still, by laws, has some ways to come in by regulations.
As a regulator?
Yes, as a regulator. However, even under the federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act, you know, the government has the power to control monopoly of the market. However, some of the things that the government will do is just encourage competition. And those threats that the government issues say, okay, we are going to encourage competition, we are going to bring in more people to come in, so we threaten your own businesses. But when maybe the manufacturers see that, look, even if you will open up the borders for everybody to come in, we understand that the supply cost, that particular good will come to Nigeria. No importer will go to import cement and bring it to Nigeria because probably he cannot sell it below 15,000 naira. So the manufacturers, if they remain adamant, they believe that, look, this is the fair price that we are going to maintain. Even if you are going to open up, we know that nobody can bring this good to the country.
It can never be cheaper than what we're selling it
Of
right
course,
now.
it can never be cheaper. That is just the reason why they will remain adamant.
I mean, the government has political power and leverage, but legally speaking, can it even force these companies to sell at a lower price? Do you think this is something actionable, that they can drag them to the courts, for instance, and say, oh, this, based on certain provisions, we are enforcing, you know, the law as regulators to bring down the price of ABC at so rate?
Of course, the government has the power to set up those price control. In fact, this is the exact thing that Mr. Falana tried to ensure that has happened in Nigeria, by saying that, okay, you have the power to make this board, and this board will regulate the prices of goods. However, the only thing that the board must look at by the provision of the law is all those costs of production.
To be reasonable.
Yes, cost of production to be reasonable, and the fair profit that a producer should get, or a wholesaler or retailer should get. So those are the things that have to be you know, looked at before the government comes in. So even if the government wants to come in, there are some conditions. But however, when the government wishes to come in fact, it's going to be a criminal offense for anybody to sell beyond the price that the government puts.
Usually there's a floor and there's a ceiling when it comes to pricing. It shouldn't go as low as this, or it shouldn't go as high as, you know, whatever the price may be. That is what we usually see. But however, the whole idea is that we have a liberal market, so to say, quote unquote, and that is why sometimes when they talk about market forces, is usually out of the hands of the government. Time for you now to join the conversation. If you have an opinion or thought that you would love to share, let's hear them. Give us a call. The number is on your TV screens, and if you do have an opinion about this particular conversation, feel free to join in. A quick reminder, rules of engagement: when you give us a call, turn down the volume of your TV set, and of course be as articulate and as concise as you can be with your comments, and of course be civil at all times. That is what we'd love to have as far as this conversation is concerned. So in anticipation of some of the calls, just looking at the landscape, right? Because a lot of people are saying, you know, it's not just cement, it's not just food items. We're dealing with record high inflation in Nigeria today. Okay, just before I get to that point, let's speak to our first caller on the program. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
Yeah, good evening. Abdullah Ahmad and Barito Hussein in the studio. I do work Shamaki from Akwanza Nasara speaking.
Shamaki from Nasara, as always. It's good to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. I don't know whether you know the price, how much the price of cement is in Nasara State, but if you do know, we'd love for you to share that with us, and go ahead with your thoughts.
I am telling you the price of cement as I'm speaking to you right now is 10,000 naira.
Right.
Yeah. You see, and the issue of high price of cement in this country is becoming topic of discussion. With the situation, how can the common man survive? In Sudan, they increased the price of bread, which resulted in the war in that country up to date. But in this country, everything has increased. So Nigeria today is not the Nigeria of yesterday, because government of the people, by the people, are for the people. Every president that is coming to govern because of his people. Without people, the governors cannot work. The last president, the last president gave trust to the last administration, which has said Now, the president and the selection of President Tinubu came with a new hope to Nigeria. Here where we are. Hope of hunger, starvation, and death to the people of Nigeria. So as a matter of policy, let the right thing to be done by implementing the minimum wage to workers, federal, state, and local government to cushion the hardship that already ravaged in this country. Thank you and God bless you.
Right. I mean, I can appreciate the frustration with which you speak about these particular issues. Most Nigerians feel the same way. Thank you so much, Shamaki, as always, for being a regular voice on the program. Thank you so much for calling in. And I dare say we're going to hear more and more of some of these similar. Realistically speaking, as a Nigerian yourself, is there a room where, you know, what the likes of Femi Falana, you know, did? I mean, in other countries, people go the nuclear option, they either protest or, you know, they kickstart a movement that drives home this particular message. But as far as consumer protection is concerned, and the consumer here is, you know, millions and millions of Nigerians, right? Give me a sense of what people can do organically as far as the provisions of the law is concerned. When you cannot afford the price of goods and services, what does the law, what provision does the law give you to explore, to say, okay, here's a way to seek redress or something like that?
Well, basically, you know, when you are in a democratic society, it actually has its rules and regulation, and it runs by that rules. I mean, those rules. You see, we just spoke about the suit instituted by Mr. Falana to say, okay, government, you have to come in. So it's one of the ways that the populace, I mean,
like a class action, for instance. Or
well, a class action, yes, it's something that can. In fact, Falana's already done it. But how are we going to get this enforced? That's the issue.
Okay, just a moment, Barrister. Let's speak to our next caller who is calling in from Taraba.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Your name again, please.
It's Usman Al-Hassan from Mambila, Taraba State.
Usman from Mambila. How is the Mambila this evening?
Cool and calm,
yeah. A lot of people envy your weather conditions at this time of the year. So go ahead. Tell us what you have to say regarding this issue.
Everybody is
Go ahead.
At my Ondaga, this evening, we bought a bag of cement, almost 15,000 naira. If the increment is everyday increment, when they had the announcement from the radio or from the TV, they just increasing the price.
What are the retailers telling you regarding why the price is going up? What are they saying about, you know, why the price is going up?
They say that it's the cost of transportation and other items.
Right. And what would you like the government to do about it?
I want Tinubu to give order and directive to all companies that they should reduce and sell their company price.
Right. I think the president has already done that. However, we clearly see a disconnection between his directive and the manufacturers of some of these products. So for the time being, at least, it doesn't look like anything is being done about that. But thank you so much for joining us on the program. Really appreciate your contribution on this one. What about price uniformity, for instance? Because there's also something to be said about that. He just talked about almost 15,000. Shamaki talked about 10,000, and we also understand that it varies from location to location. Obviously, because of transportation costs, you expect there to be some slight changes. But is there anything with regards to the provisions that talks about uniformity of price? Say, for instance, if you're buying this mug, it shouldn't be, even if you know, you're buying one in Lagos and then you're buying one in Kano, the difference shouldn't be, you know, significantly too much, so much so that you feel as if you're buying a different product altogether. But that's what we're seeing right now, especially with this particular product, cement that we're talking about.
You see, to the credit of, I think one of the BOA directors, during the conversation shared in the news, he stated that basically the market price, you know, the purchase price on the market of cement should not be more than 7,000 naira. I think that was the point he made. And of course, he said they produce and sell it at 6,000. So basically, this is why, you know, the judgment gotten by Mr. Falana is very instrumental here. And of course, the government should take it serious. The government should try and get this board ready, whereby people are exploiting this product, people by this product. And in fact, even within the Price Control Act, hoarding is a criminal offense. If you hoarded this, I mean, some essential goods that are being listed around, you are supposed to be punished for that. So generally, the government needs to be up and doing on this. So a retailer or a wholesaler should not take this product that he's supposed to sell at 7,000 naira in any part of this country and sell it at 15,000 naira. Basically, it doesn't make sense.
And I suppose that's where the Consumer Protection Commission comes in, where it's about, because sometimes these goods have been on the shelf or in the warehouses for months on end. But the moment there's a price increase, you see that everything available in the store, everything available in the warehouse is being sold at the new price, despite the fact that you know, the goods have been there for quite some time, previously sold at a much more affordable rate. What do you think about, you know, the regulatory supervision that is supposed to be there? Say, for instance, if you have these goods and we are well aware that they have been in your store for the past 2 months, you have no reason to sell them at the new price because you didn't buy them at the new price that has been sold at the market.
And I think we are still going back to the point I made earlier, that if this price control comes in, if the government feels like maybe the price control board comes into existence, I mean, comes into action and say, okay, this is the price of this good. Even where there is changes of, changes in prices, the government will come in and say, okay, from this period to this period, this thing should be sold at this price.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines and speak to Lawan, who is calling in from Kano. Lawan, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good night, Uncle. And I'm calling, once again, my name is Lord Bichi. I'm calling from Bichi.
Right.
And I have seen your program now that the price, Mr. President has directed the companies to revert to the previous prices. Like the previous callers are saying that the price of cement here in my own location, Bichi, now is 8,000.
8,000.
8,000.
Right. All of the products, is it Dangote, is it Boa, is it Lafarge, which one?
All the price are the same.
Right.
Yes, the price is the same in the location that I was now.
And what are people saying generally about this increase? I know 8,000 is much more affordable compared to the 12,000, 15,000 that other people are paying for.
That the high price is come because of the economic situation, that the dollar is going high. The price of dollar is going high now. That's what they are complaining.
Okay, Lawan, thank you so much for adding your voice to this conversation. We really appreciate you for calling in on the program. We expect more views to be added to this conversation. Chime in if you can. We'd love to know what the price of cement is in your area, what the price of other goods, as far as the current inflationary trend is concerned, especially in light of the directive by Mr. President. Someone else is on the line. Hello, good evening, and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. Your name and where you're calling from, please. Hello there. Okay, we've lost our connection to that caller. Feel free to call back in. The number is showing on your TV screen. Rules of engagement, once again, turn down the volume of your TV set, be as concise and articulate as you can, and of course, go straight to the point. And do not forget to mention your name and your location. We're talking about price control, reality or myth. I think that's what most Nigerians are discussing in their minds right now, because it doesn't look like anything is under control given the current inflationary trend. Some of these commodities are witnessing a near 100% price increment especially as we talk about building materials like cement, for instance, which is very much essential for all the housing as well as other building projects across the country today. And in fact, the presidency has shown its interest in addressing this particular issue, and that is why the directive came from the president through the Minister of Works. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. Your name, please, and where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Taraba. My name is Barnabas.
Barnabas from Taraba. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Go ahead, Barnabas. What do you have to say?
Please, my is complaint.
Go ahead.
I think this issue of cement price, in fact, it has crippled almost all even masses. You see, especially whereby you have, in fact, it has crippled almost everybody.
Barnabas, just for a moment, just do me a favor, Barnabas, just turn down the volume of your TV set for a moment so we can have a clear conversation.
What I'm saying is that, what I'm trying to say is that at least when these men are produced in the country, I think there is a situation whereby at least they should do the government should reduce the tax for them, so as much as they can reduce the price.
Do you blame?
These men have been selling to Ghana. They are selling to Ghana here 1,800 or 2,000 thereabout. But I understand that this Nigerian, everything that have been considering the price, you understand everything that the price is up. It cannot come down again.
Right.
They're talking about 8,000 now. Okay, look at the masses. A masses that has is a farmer. You want to build a house now. You got how many bags of goods or how many goods that he has and to sell to afford 50 bags of cement. You see, please, it's something that the government and the companies, they have to sit up and deliberate and give the masses what it takes for them to do.
I can't agree with you more, Barnabas.
That is my own contribution, please.
I can't agree with you more. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, Barnabas. A little late last year or early last year, we saw from BUA where they put out a statement saying, you know, they're going to commence selling the price of their bag of cement at 3,500. A couple of weeks later, Nigerians were still groaning that, you know, this has not happened yet. Then we understand that the other companies were not happy, saying, listen, you're trying to take us out of business. 3,500 is not realistic. Give me a sense of, you know, what sort of business practices are acceptable based on our current laws right now, what they can or they cannot do as far as making life easier for Nigerians is concerned, because we've seen the back and forth, especially between these two companies, BUA and gov't, over the past few years about pricing, whether it's for sugar or for other commodities that they're in competition with.
Well, you know, as I mentioned earlier, the FPCC, that's the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act, talks about how this competition has to be exercised between you know, competing business concerns, and generally there are certain practices that will have to be controlled. And of course, even with that statement today, you know, the reality has probably might have visited the BUA company, and their recent statement said they are actually selling at 6,000 factory price. And so basically, even statements like that are made, you realize that it's just something that the other company has to sit up and say is favorable to the market. If today BUA said he's selling at 1,000 naira, if he's selling at a loss, definitely you don't need to talk to BUA company to rethink and say, okay, we are not run at a loss.
We have Muhammad calling in from Katsina. Muhammad from Katsina. Good evening and thank you so much for joining us.
From Kaduna.
Kaduna, I beg your pardon. Thank you so much, Muhammad, for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my own mistake on this is this. Like, that's I actually I was 5,000 plus. Not on the previous distance. Move then we make that 10,000 plus, which I stopped having engagement.
Mohammed, we're struggling to hear you. I'm really sorry, but we're struggling to hear and comprehend what you're saying. So perhaps end the call and try calling back in again, and let's have a conversation, because we're struggling to make sense of what you're saying. We have another caller on the line. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. Your name, please, and where you're calling from.
I'm from Senegal.
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
Aliyu from Senegal.
Aliyu?
Yes, sir.
From Suleja.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Aliyu.
Thank you. Government ordered the cement company to reverse all the price. It's quite unfortunate that government action look like a dog that can bite back but cannot bite. You see, government have failed to really control the price of commodities and the market that indirectly. You see, the major problem we are having today is that the government is not proactive, it's reactive. Right from the day one, the removal of the first subsidy and also amortization of exchange rate is a good idea, but government have not planned it well how to come up with intervention that will make the life easy for Nigerians. And that is why up to this moment, all acts that government has been doing is just like act in vain, because all it is reaction, it is not proactive. Government has to sit down and make sure that yes, it is a responsibility they have. If you are solving a problem, you have to lay out plan how to tackle the problem without much damage. That's how the government has not been done. What I said the government to do now, instead of them dishing out money for giving governors or rolling out palliative that people are not getting it, why don't they use those funds and make sure that they pay intervention to these companies, local manufacturers, so that they can also open the border for foreign goods to also come in. Right. So with that, there will be competition, and they can be able to address our student problem.
Right. Okay.
To go.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Aliyu. Really appreciate your perspective on this one, and I believe that a lot of Nigerians who would agree with you that the level playing field is not there. The environment, economically speaking, is also one that leaves much to be desired as far as the operations of some of these manufacturers are concerned. They are bleeding, even though they're able to make profit. Their margins still leave much to be desired. And I dare say that we just understand that gov't Cement, for instance, has recorded quite a remarkable profit, as some of its shareholders generally smiling to the bank as a result of some of those profits. But give me a sense of how, where we can situate the blame or the responsibility appropriately, because the manufacturers will also tell you that, listen, some of the dealers that we sell to, they come to our factories, they buy it at X amount, and when they go out there, they sell it at whatever amount they want to sell, because they are trying to also cover, their profit margins and things like that. So don't put this all on us, because we don't get to decide how much they sell at the end of the day. How much gap do you think exists within this system that we have? Because you get a sense that, you go to one retailer, he sells at, say for instance, 9,500, you go right to the next dealer, he's selling you at 10,000 plus. So the variation is quite, obvious, but also you can't really hold the companies responsible for that.
Well, Ali has made one point at the government, a serious criticism. He said they become like dogs that can bark but cannot bite. generally, well, a little correction I will make on his comment is that you see, even if the government wants to back, even by the the Price Control Act, the government can only back within some regulations. The government has to look at the production cost for the manufacturers, and also the transportation and other costs for the wholesalers and retailers, before that control can be done. So generally, my own thinking is that we just receive a call from, Kano, who said that
it's sold at 8,000.
8,000. While another person said at 9 or 10,000 at Nasarawa.
Nasarawa is 10,000.
15,000 at Tarawa. You see, the margin is quite wide. So basically, if it is sold at Kano at 8,000, it will be fairer if we say 9,000 sold at Taraba and other things.
Okay.
So that's where the government needs to come in to clear this margin. Look at, in fact, the manufacturers, check out through their records. What are you producing this amount for? I mean, what is the amount of at your production?
Okay.
Or how are you going to I'm supposed to sell it?
Okay. Barrister, we're going to have to leave it here for now. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Really appreciate your expertise analysis on this one. Thank you so much for joining us on Daily Politics.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your contribution. Appreciate you for making the time. And thank you so much for joining us. Daily Politics returns next week, Monday, live and exclusive on Trust TV. Until then, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. We'll see you soon.